Okay, it's time for an Ashikai lore and theory video about the Sinners and Shades. I am very excited for this. I have been putting this video off for literally like 9 days because I think I had like other videos I was making, and I don't like to have heavy lore stuff on the same day I do like a big quest in a game or stuff. I like to leave some time in between them. So I've been doing a lot of like other things. So I'm finally watching this. I'm very excited. Obviously Ashikai would have made this before 5.8 came out. Obviously, yeah, 5.7. But so, and we learned some new stuff about Venti and Istaroth, which Istaroth is a shade. About how like Istaroth gave Venti some of her authority and some of her like power in a way, like power. Like so, Venti has some power over time, and that's how it obviously blew the Majivari off the timeline, which is insane. So I'm very excited to learn about this, learn more about the shades, see what Ashikai is cooking up, and see how I was gonna say brain dead I'm going to be after this because of how much lore she's going to pump into my brain. Well, let's go.
Everybody was losing their minds over the reveal of the Four Shades, and
it's insane.
Well, so was I. I mean, it is a big deal.
I really did not expect for them to randomly drop a trailer showing the shades. That was wild. Like, that was wild.
For like 4 years for anything concrete about them. But the whole time we were poring over this trailer, I just couldn't stop thinking about just how odd the timing of this video was. I'm not talking about how it happened on a random Wednesday. That part's kind of normal. What I mean is, how do I explain this? Usually when HoYoverse drops a lore-heavy trailer like this one, it has something to do with the recent plot developments in the game. But although they have had a couple of very brief references and mentions in a couple of quests,
like we had like Renova in what's it called, Natlan and stuff, like with like where we encountered the Eye, was speaking to the Eye and stuff. That was probably like the most recent thing.
And artifact or weapon descriptions, the recent patches haven't really been about the shades or gods or the heavenly.
And I guess we did see the Heavenly Principle, or the Sustain of Heavenly Principle as well. We saw like her spying on us in the 5.7 quest. The Dainsleep quest.
Or Celestia at all. They've mostly been focused on Conria and the Sinners. So if I'm being generous, we could say that the Sinners are kind of in the foreground while the Shades may be in the background. But if we're getting a trailer about the Shades, then surely there has to be a connection there, right? And we already have—
I mean, I feel like Nod Cry is going to be big Shade shit. Like, it's going to be insane because they did say they want to intervene with some things. Maybe intervene with the Fatui or intervene with like something. I don't 100% remember if they said. I don't think they did. But they've got to intervene with something within the rules they're permitted like by. So I feel like we're going to encounter the Shades, or we're going to encounter the Shades doing something in Nod Cry. I really believe we will, or in Shesnaya at least. But I feel like in Nod Cry we'll at least see like a lot of things to do with the Shades. Since they did say they're going to intervene with some things.
One very important link between the Shades and the Sinners via Nabarius and Rhine-Daughter, as the two have fused into a single entity.
I mean, oh yeah, we did learn that in 5.6 that Rhine-Daughter devoured her. I forgot her name. Fuck's sake.
Between the Shades and the Sinners via Nabarius and Rhine.
Yeah, Nabarius. Like Rhine-Daughter devoured Nabarius, which is insane. And we also learned that the Bakanawa devoured like some of Rhine-Daughter, which is very interesting. we learned that, which is kind of wild.
Daughter, as the two have fused into a single entity with two
she wanted God's
and
God's
that made
creations.
me wonder if there might be some important links between the remaining Sinners and Shades. And yeah, actually there are quite a few. In fact, we can neatly match each Shade to a Sinner. Plus, Stygian Onslaught shared with us the names of the Sinners' weapons, and there's a lot we can glean from just that. But there's only 4
Wait,
slots.
really? Wow, okay, that's cool. I haven't seen anything to do with the weapons as well. I haven't even tried anything more than like the first 3 levels of Stygian Onslaught.
The Sinner's weapons.
Not bothered.
And there's a lot we can glean from just that. But there's only 4 Shades and 5
I like
Sinners,
the look of them.
which means the 5th Sinner has to be matched with the Heavenly
Too bad they're not permanent, however.
Principles, and that gives us a lovely 5-to-5 matchup. If you've looked at the link
Oh,
of
yeah,
this video,
true.
you know that I have a lot to say on the subject, so let's not waste any more time and just kind of dive into it. We're going to be tackling these matchups. I have a lot to say on the subject, so let's not waste any more time and
Time,
just
get it. God damn it.
dive in.
That's 2 in a row I've made the joke.
Do it. We're going to be
I don't know
tackling
if I
these
watched the
matchups
last
in
one, I don't
sets of
remember.
2. One sinner, one shade. Right after a word from the sponsor of today's video, Opera GX.
Opera
GX is the least boring browser you're ever
I've
gonna
downloaded
use.
Opera
I mean,
and
how many other
uninstalled
browsers
Opera so
I
many
really
times, it's
like.
ridiculous.
And you can like it too by using my link in the
Actually,
description
it's
to
same.
download Opera GX for free today.
Damn,
a big thanks to
yeah, this text download now, that was crazy.
Opera GX for
That's
sponsoring
crazy.
this video, and
That's
now
crazy.
you all get to witness the fruits of my 1,000-tab research operation as we start off this Sinners and Shade
Hey,
video
I'm
with our
excited.
first pairing that
I'm
will set
excited.
the stage for the rest of the pairings. And I'm specifically talking about the
Death.
Heavenly Principles and Horoptatyr. So here's the thing. The Heavenly Principles is actually a title given to the one who currently dictates the laws of heaven. In Chinese, this is the concept of Tianli, and it's very specific. Now, I mentioned this because according to Before Sun and Moon, the primordial one was
Oh
responsible.
yeah, I did watch a video on this, I think like 2.5 weeks ago. If you would have checked it out, it's got like 300 views, which is kind of crazy. Make sure you do that because I finally watched some videos. I didn't read it myself. I listened to Minslith read it out as like an audiobook. I did that. Very interesting. But yeah, if you want to see my reaction to that, make sure you do. Also, I watched like Ashikai's video on it as well and stuff. Yeah.
Now, I mentioned this because according to Before Sun and Moon, the primordial one was responsible for creating the four shades to help them fight in the war against the dragons. So this primordial one, who may or may not have been named Phanes, is assumed to be the first descender. They're also credited with creating Tevat's current system of fate, forging the elemental system from the dragon's phlogiston framework, working together with the second descender to carve the third descender's remains into the seven gnosis,
I'm
and
curious who the third descender actually was. I want to see them. See them carve. Oh my god. It's like, alright, this left arm, let's chop it off. Let's make that into the Geonos. Alright, his right arm, let's make that into the Hydronos. Jesus Christ.
starting the Archon War to make the gods of Tevat fight for the Gnosis. That's quite the resume.
That's
But it's not entirely
Hey, entertainment's entertainment at the end of the day. They probably did that just for entertainment at the end of the day.
clear whether the first or second descender is the one currently holding the title of the Heavenly Principles. It could be either, neither, or both. But regardless of
That'll
who
be interesting,
actually
both.
sits upon the throne, the
Neither
power of
will
a
be
descender is that of reason. Why? Because a reason, or logos, is the power of an almighty god, and that's kind of what the first descender, aka the Heavenly Principles, aka Tianli, is. And it's through this power of
How many
logos or
names?
language that the world was given shape. You know, let there be light and all that jazz. And I really don't think there's much room for doubt as to what the source of this power is, since the fourth descender, aka the Traveler, also possesses this power of reason and is capable of ascending to the seat of God.
changing
I will also
fates,
point out that
alright.
5 types of artifacts you can get in this game directly reference the four shades.
Oh yeah, I learned that. I don't know. I think I learned that in in one of Brand's video when he was reacting to a lore video. I learned that, which is like, yeah, like yeah. I was like, yeah, that's very interesting.
Plus the Heavenly Principles. We have the Flower of Life, the Feather of Death, the Clock of Time, the Cup of
But this looks like a clock. True.
Space, and the Crown of Logos. Okay,
Very
so
interesting.
whoever holds the title of the Heavenly Principles is the one currently
I
governing
didn't know that until like a few weeks ago. It was really cool.
the world with the power of reason, which straight up makes them God in an Abrahamic sense. That makes their four shades something like the four archangels, perhaps performing the roles of Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Uriel. I'm picking those four because they're the ones on Mona's scryglass, but I'm not really going to talk about them again. But it's worth noting that the current Heavenly Principles should be considered a false god, a demiurge, if you will. This is partially because Genshin actually pulls a lot from Gnosticism, which talks about a false god ruling the world. But this idea is also supported by the fact that the ones currently under the service of the Heavenly Principles do not bear the names of angels despite being identified as such, but they are instead demons. Demons primarily taken from the lesser key
It's
of
like the Archons are named after demons as well, right?
Solomon. This grimoire contains a list of
Or
72 high demons who each command legions of low-rank demons, all of whom
Oh,
bow their
okay.
heads to King Solomon, mostly because God decided to give Solomon a ring that gave him the power to command demons. Kind of grants him a sort of pseudo or false leader status, hence demiurge, right? Now, among these demons, we see references to very familiar names, specifically Astaroth, Renove, Nibarius, and Asmodeus.
Oh.
These are the names that the shades
Yeah.
reference. Now, the real reason I've paired the Heavenly Principles and the concept of Logos with Horoptatyr is because of their perceived position within the hierarchy of the sinners. Within the Nordic pantheon, Odin was considered the high god and was the master
Hold up.
hierarchy of the sinners. Within the Nordic
Since Oh, okay.
Pantheon, Odin was considered the high god and was the master of the magic runes, so language. Horoptatyr also means sage, and it is one of Odin's many epithets. Ergo, Horoptatyr is basically the high god or the leader of the sinners in this case. But I do need to add a small caveat to this.
Fate.
Despite his moniker of the wise, which is one that is shared with Odin, I'm not 100% sure that Horoptatyr.
If you wonder why I said that's because he has the red, fucking it looks like he has a command seal on his fucking freaking.
His moniker of the wise, which is one that is shared with Odin. I'm not 100% sure that Horoptatyr is actually supposed to be directly referencing Odin, since Conria already had King Ermin, and Ermin is.
I just realized. Sorry, you can see like his missing eye there. That's really cool.
Odin, since Conria already had King Ermin, and Ermin is also another name for Odin. And as the king of Conria, he would have a higher status than Horoptatyr. You see where I'm going with this? Besides that, Odin is best known for using a spear as a weapon, but the only weapon we've associated so far with Horoptatyr is a claymore. Now that's not to say he couldn't have a spear as well, but it is odd for them to not just do that from the start. The Claymore's name, Starkathr, is also a bit of an outlier, as it doesn't seem to reference anything specific in Norse mythology like the other sinner weapons do. That said, the closest reference I could find was to Starkad, the name of either an 8-armed Jotun or his human grandson. I want to put my money on grandson here because in Gartrik's saga, Starkad's foster father was actually Odin, who bestowed many blessings upon him, like the gift of poetry, a linguistic gift. So I think it is possible that Horoptatyr is actually related to Ermin and thus assumes a similar role amongst the sinners. It would also make sense that someone named after a sage should be the one advising a king, you know? This is one of the Sinner Shade pairings I have the least amount to talk about, so I'm gonna leave it there for now and move on to one of the more interesting pairings, like Renova and Rerir. Renova takes her name from the demon Renove. He's best known for teaching languages and for his work harvesting the takes her name from the demon Renove. He's best
God damn it.
Best known for teaching languages and for his work harvesting the souls of those near death. That's a very appropriate name for the god of death. She's essentially a Grim Reaper after all, although she does appear to be slightly more nuanced than simply being death incarnate. To me, she appears to embody the concept of the end of all things, because we've seen her kill things that are inanimate, and it's pretty difficult to bring death to things that aren't alive, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Asmodee's space cubes are living. Stuff inside them might be living, but like the cubes themselves are not, and she just kind of poofs it. So I think her real power lies in being able to decide when the end comes for anyone or anything. So when she decided the end would never come for the people of Conria, she basically cursed them with immortality, with having no end. She did something similar in Natlan by lending Xbalanque some of her powers to reject the moment someone meets their end, providing they fulfill the conditions, of course. She also assisted the Lord of the Night with the creation of the Night Kingdom, but the Heavenly Principles did consider this to be a breach of her authority, which is why, despite being the realms of the dead, I don't feel like the ley lines in the Night Kingdom fall under the jurisdiction of death. Because again, she's the moment that the end comes, she's not the whole concept of being dead. Now initially, Renova seems to have been quite compassionate towards humanity, welcoming them into death's embrace when their end came. But after a strong reprimand from the Heavenly Principles, she became a bit more detached and indifferent towards the fate of humanity. She kind of reminds me of an office worker who's realized she's never going to receive proper recognition for her accomplishments, and her boss is just going to yell at her all the time, so she just kind of gave up and now does the bare minimum to get her paycheck. Now, it doesn't take a theorist to notice the similarities between Renova and Arlecchino, and that connection is rather curious.
Oh my god, yeah, Arlecchino looks like she has eyes on her fucking wing!
Renova and Arlecchino.
Yeah, as soon as she put Arlecchino on the screen, before she said, I was like, oh, wait, hold up a second. It looks like, look, has like the eyes. Oh, wow, yeah, the wings. Holy shit, interesting.
And that connection is rather
I forget
curious.
Arlecchino has a wing.
Arlecchino is a descendant of the Crimson Moon dynasty, and all of her Renova-esque features should therefore come from the Bale Moon bloodfire curse that lingers in her blood. She's also quite closely tied with death, so I think it's quite likely that her curse's origin is within Renova's power, or that the origin of Renova's power is within the Crimson Moon. It's quite likely that her curse's origin is within Renova's power, or that the origin of Renova's power is within the Crimson Moon. Could be either one. The reason I'm pairing Renova with Rerir is because Rerir's moniker is Rasher of Solnari. So Rasher means avenge or vengeance, and Rerir was a character found in the Volsung saga who avenges his father's death. Rerir also died while his wife was pregnant, and she didn't survive the pregnancy either. Now, normally I wouldn't mention something like this, but Rerir's weapon, a spear named Barnstalker, literally means child trunk. Trunk as in tree trunk, not trunk as in chest. Stabbing blades into these Barnstalker trees is something newlywed couples did to test how blessed their marriage would be. Barnstalker also seems to be the name that the Norse gave trees that pregnant women clutched while giving birth. These trees would then be considered guardian trees and protect the bloodline of that family. And if the tree dies, that bloodline would lose its blessings and also die out. Just to spite me, as I was recording this video, Hoyo released the Moonlit Ballad of Night trailer. And in it, Alice receives a letter with 3 words on it: Arlos, Solnari, and Canon.
Guess the video probably took a little bit longer to come out. I guess the video took a little bit longer to come out after that.
Almost certainly variations of the names of the Moon Sisters, Arya, Sonnet, and Canon, which means Solnari is, in fact, a moon. While Rasher of Solnari is somewhat vague as to whether or not the vengeance is on behalf of Solnari or against Solnari, Rerir's Chinese title of Moon Hunter implies that he's seeking revenge against Solnari because he's hunting the moon. Now, based on this title and his namesake seeking vengeance on behalf of his family, it's quite likely that the moon Solnari had some perceived role in ruining Rerir's family. Perhaps Solnari is the crimson moon that allegedly swallowed the Eclipse dynasty of Conria. I'm not quite sure how this ties in yet, but I do think it's worth mentioning that the 3 forms of resin we have, condensed, fragile, and transient, can be fit together to form the symbol of the 3 moons, and resin comes from trees. Hence the leaves or
wow, that is insane.
fit together to form the symbol of the 3 moons, and resin comes.
Oh my god, wait, what? Yeah, because this one's broken. That's insane.
From trees, hence the leaves or literal trees inside of them.
Yeah,
I
insane.
really feel like there's some sort of connection here to this Barnstalker tree. In context, I'm just not quite sure what it is yet. Now you're probably wondering how all of this ties Rerir with Renova, death, apart from the whole, killing someone out of vengeance thing. Well, let me walk you through my thought process. Renova's wings match those of the omnipresent god in Inazuma, a god I once linked to Canon in this video. Not Sonnet or Solnari, but still a moon all the same. The wings themselves are shaped like the symbol Genshin uses to reference the Homa ritual, which circles around death and rebirth. You can just think of Hu Tao's fire-based funeral rites and her Homa staff for context, or you can watch any of these videos I've made on the topic for deeper dives on it. But the Homa symbol connection to death makes it very appropriate for Renova. Also kind of explains why the symbol is all over the Nightwind tribe in Natlan, since, they have the closest connection to the Night Kingdom, which has all the dead souls in it, and Renova also helped build it and create the rules around them. Death and Natlan's Ode of Resurrection. However, the fact that the omnipresent god statue looks nothing like Renova and also boasts another symbol hanging around their neck makes me wonder if this deity once governed over both life and death, and her authority was split into 2.
Okay, I definitely see it looking a bit like Nubius.
Death was given to Renova, and life was given to Nabarius, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. Because it would make a lot of sense based on new context if this was a moon sister, seeing how the Moonlit Ballad of the Night trailer claims that there were no boundaries between life and death during the era of the moons. And I think that this statue might be the missing link between Rerir and Renova. As a heads up, we're about to go into massive tinfoil hat territory, but I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Even if the ideas I'm working with are still a little bit half-baked, so just stick with me. There's a myth in the book Treasured Tales of the Choken Shin Kageuchi, which calls Makoto an A, Shin, and Kage, or rather, light and shadow. And light, or Makoto, forged A's original body, or at least the body that she had before A made the Raiden puppet. Now, for the longest time, me and my lore buddy Crystal Marie have been theorizing that this myth was actually alluding to the fact that A was originally the Electro's sovereign, and Makoto hid that sovereign inside of an artificial body, giving her a new name and therefore a new identity, thus making making her believe
That
that
would
the
be
two
insane.
were twins. This is still a possibility, but I also think it's very possible that instead of hiding a dragon in an artificial body that she pretended was her twin, Makoto hid the remnants of a moon. So in much the same way that the Heavenly Principles plays the role of the sun and casts four shadows in their own image, Makoto may have done the same thing, but cast only one shadow in her own image, the shadow of A, which is what her name means. Now, fun fact, a shadow or shade, which are terms that are interchangeable in Chinese, can refer to the spirit of the deceased that wander along the river Styx in Greek mythology. So A being named after a shadow or a shade could imply that she's the remnants of something that died, like a moon. And the river Styx in Genshin is found in Enkanomiya, which is a sub-region of Inazuma. To make the whole A might be the remnants of a dead moon thing a bit more suspicious, this stupid mural in Inazuma has always been a mystery to everybody, and while some have suggested that they represent the three moon sisters, we have had zero proof until now.
Yeah, because you can see the horns.
Because in the Moonlit Ballad of the Night trailer, these shadows of the three moons have horns that match those of the portrait. So the question becomes, does the presence
My God, it's a horn!
this mural suggest a connection to A? I mean, her Honkai Impact counterpart has horns. So does the Raiden Shogun body. But I'm not going to base this entire idea off the Impact counterpart has horns. So does the Raiden Shogun body.
That looks more like a hairpiece, but I can see them as looking like horns, yeah.
But I'm not going to base this entire idea off the existence of horns, because if we look at some other moon-based legends, there is a recurring pattern wherein two moon sisters die or get shattered in the sky, and a third sister was so distraught that she refused to leave her palace ever again. And need I remind you that that's exactly what A did. Sure, in this incarnation she was distraught over Makoto's death, but like she was still distraught over the death of her sister or perceived sister. So who's to say whether or not her previous incarnation was actually the moon sister that was so distraught over the death of her two sisters that she isolated herself in her own palace and never came out again? If nothing else, it's a pretty interesting allegory, don't you think? But even considering A's ideal of eternity is fascinating here, because as you might recall, one of the three moons was the eternal moon. Now what's this?
And she sees herself closest to eternity. Oh my God, like eternity closest to the heavenly principles, and all she is about is eternity. Oh my God.
To do with death. Because remember, this is Revere and Renova's section, not A's section. So where am I going with this? Well, A's idea of eternity was a form of stasis. Nothing ever changes, everything always stays the same. So in the context of death, perhaps eternity is the eternal sleep. So an eternal land is one that does not live, because death is stasis. But to add some nuance to this, if life and death were originally one authority, like I've been suggesting, and this authority belonged to one of the moon sisters, and A is the remnant of that moon, then the way she conceptualizes eternity makes so much sense, because during the era of the moons, there was no difference between life and death. There was no boundary there. Everything was eternally existing. There was no change. So change or transience was this new law of the world that A had to learn to accept through Makoto. And perhaps that's why in all of the preview trailers and stuff, A always had the homo wings behind her. She was stuck in this mindset that everything should be eternal. And the only way to accomplish that in this form is to impose death, which is probably what led to the Vision Hunt Decree. Now, as you may or may not remember, the Fatui were the ones who introduced the idea of the Vision Hunt Decree to Raiden and A, but the Raiden Shogun's directive was to pursue eternity.
I think I forgot about that.
And I think the collection of visions just so happens to overlap with this idea of pursuing eternity through a type of spiritual death. By offering visions to the Statue of Death, you would essentially accomplish a sort of ceremonial death. That's essentially what I'm calling the Vision Hunt Decree. If you're wondering why visions would accomplish this, well, you remember how I linked Arlecchino to Renova earlier? And also to a Crimson Moon, which is also something that we see in A's backdrop all the time? Well, Arlecchino also has massive Homa associations. I made an entire video about it. And she has close ties to Paraneri and the story in the book of the same name.
I watched the
in
Paraneri
this
video.
book, Paraneri attempted to enter the kingdom of Conria, but he couldn't do so until he declared himself to be dead. Up until the Cataclysm, Conway was a place that the gods never really paid attention to, and it was very likely a place where the heavenly principles' laws of fate couldn't reach. Now, in the Narcissenkreuz questline, you can find a note left by Renee who says, "To receive a vision is to sell oneself to the fate of this world, and to evermore lose the chance to walk the correct path." Seeing as fate is a system that the heavenly principles imposes on the world of mortals as a form of control over them, then possessing a vision is akin to submitting yourself to the will of the heavenly principles, something that you probably can relinquish in death. So if A was offering up visions to death, then she might have been trying to prevent everyone from fulfilling their fate, thus freeing them from the clutches of the heavenly principles and plunging them into an eternal death-like stasis. And you know what else freed Inazuma from the clutches of the heavenly principles? Makoto, when she became the sacred Sakura, a guardian tree. And you know what else is a guardian tree? A barnstalker, which was the name of Rerir's weapon. So Makoto became a guardian tree, just like a barnstalker, and while clinging to the memory of her dead sister, which is this barnstalker tree, A went through the act of creation and birthed a son. She made Wanderer, who was carved from the branches of a silver tree. And Wanderer and A are both closely tied with the art of swordsmithing, something else the barnstalker tree is associated with because you stab swords into them. And Wanderer was dead set on revenge before his rebirth, just like Rerir. And just to add to that, in Wanderer's fairy tale memory, he was a cat that wanted to destroy the current moon so he could become the new moon that replaced it. And in this case, the moon was his mother, A. So she's not really beating the moon allegations here, but...
Wow, that's just insane.
This also...
I don't really remember anything of the contents of the, that fairy tale. The only thing I know about it was that it was used to negate Irminsul's tampering. But that's all. I don't know. Didn't remember the contents at all of that fairy tale. That's insane.
Kind of implies that Wanderer is also a sort of moon hunter, doesn't it? Or at least he was before his rebirth. So what I'm wondering is if Solnari, the moon, thematically parallels A, while Rerir parallels Wanderer. And that's why death and Homa and stuff is all over Inazuma. Now, I have no idea if they planned all of this out from the very beginning or if they just got extremely lucky with some perfectly fitting retcon material. But either way, I love
You wanna do this? Can we? Oh yeah. Oh shit, we can. Oh my god, thank god we have all that shit. Oh my god, we can actually continue the game. Imagine they started adding random shit to Inazuma, freaking gaslighting us to say it was already there.
This is such a fun series of connections that I'm certainly going to be thinking about a lot over the coming months, regardless of whether or not A is actually the remnants of a moon, or
that looks like the eye for Renova. Okay, I'm stretching it.
Dragon, or really just a normal god. Doesn't really matter here because our focus is on the themes more than anything else. But that's really all I have to share about my half-baked tangent for now. So let's stop talking about death for now and move on to its opposite force of life with Naberius and Renova. Now, we've known that Ryandaughtr found the heart of Naberius since Albedo released way back in year 1, but I don't think anyone guessed that that heart belonged to the Shade of Life, or that Ryandaughtr would eat it. I mean, I'm less surprised about the eating part now because I've made a whole video about eating god bits.
Oh, Piebot? Wait, so she actually ate it like food, or she doesn't absorb it? She when she means devoured, does she mean like she absorbed the power from it? She actually got, actually chomp on her heart. If she actually chomped on the heart, I'm a bit concerned for Ryandaughtr. I'm a bit concerned.
It's a surprisingly common occurrence in Genshin, and it's what makes me fear for Paimon's life. But the real question I have is, why was Naberius's heart hidden away in the domain in the first place? And I have no answer to that. That's why I'm asking the question. Maybe we can reverse engineer this by looking at Naberius a little closer. As the Shade of Life, Naberius is responsible for creating life into that, and one of her most noteworthy creations was Egeria, the original Hydro Archon. Egeria was supposed to govern the primordial sea in Nouvelette's place, but fashioning humans from it was not allowed, so of course she did it anyway and got punished by the heavenly principles and then got sealed somewhere beneath Fontaine. Now, part of me wonders if Naberius wasn't also punished punished for Egeria's transgressions. Like, I wonder if Naberius was stripped from her physical form as punishment, and that's how she got reduced to nothing but a heart that got stuck in a domain. The heavenly principles put her in god timeout. Or perhaps Naberius had a much bigger role to play in Egeria's attempts at creation, and that's why she received such a harsh punishment. I'm not really sure. But this is the one scenario that makes some amount of sense to me. I'm also fairly certain that the Fortress of Meripede bears the emblem of a three-headed wolf because of Egeria's connections to Naberius. After all, the demon Naberius.
I gotta be honest, I never knew they were that is crazy. I mean, I haven't been to the Fortress of Meripede in a while, but I actually never knew there was like, oh, that looks sick. I didn't notice like the three-headed wolf. Wow, that's actually sick.
I'm also fairly certain that the Fortress of Meripede bears the emblem of a three-headed wolf because of Egeria's connections to Naberius. After all, the demon Naberius may have been a three-headed crow, but he was often conflated with Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the gates to the Greek underworld. And to the people of Fontaine, the primordial sea that exists underneath the nation is essentially their underworld. Or at least it was before they all became real humans. But that connects Naberius a bit too much to death, in my opinion. But then again, life is created from
everything leads to fucking death, doesn't it?
Maybe this is merely a question of access to raw materials to create things with. And that does kind of line up with what we know about how Rheindotter creates life. Because much like Naberius, Rheindotter was infamous for her alchemically crafted life forms like the Rift Hounds, Durin, Elenus, and Albedo. And she considers herself their mother to some extent. Now, as far as we know, Rheindotter's alchemical life-making process followed the 4 stages of the magnum opus, starting in the stage of Nigredo, which represents the black earth, which is full of decayed, composted matter. That's why it's called humus. So you can start to see the overlap here, right? Creating life from dead matter. Now, because Rheindotter had such an interest in the creation of life, it feels somewhat inevitable that her interest would lead her right to the god of life itself. Although I do think that the authority of life is more about where life begins than the art of living itself. I say this for a few reasons, but like, on the most simplistic level, Naberius is full of symbols surrounding genetics, especially DNA-like double helix structures. And the actual manipulation of genetic code happens before birth rather than while a life form is alive. So if you want to iterate on your ideas, you're going to want to focus on the conception and birth of a life form, since the actual life of your creation would be more like data points that you'd use for your next round of genetic experiments. So the focus is always on the life form before it actually becomes a life. Once it's a life, it's just data, and that might be why Rheindotter seems to lose interest in her creations after a while. This also helps to mirror Renova's authority over death, because like I said, Renova's power of death seems to be more like the power of the end. So a mirror of the end would just be the beginning, hence why I think the authority over life is the authority over like birth or conception rather than the authority over life itself. And with that angle, we can play into Hoyo's favorite theme of the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. Because remember, in the Moonlit Ballad of the Night trailer, there were no boundaries between life and death. They were like one authority. So the beginning was the end and the end was the beginning. And speaking of, Rheindotter's weapon is a sword named after Jormungandr, a serpent that encircled the entire world in Norse mythology. And he's also an Ouroboros, meaning he's a serpent that chews his own tail. So his end or his tail is also in the same spot where his beginning or
like a dog chasing its own tail.
head is. It's a pretty perfect reference for Rheindotter, I think, especially when you consider the fact that she sort of specializes in creating draconic life forms, and technically a serpent is a draconic life form. But that name has a bit of a deeper meaning. See,
I brush every night before I sleep.
Deeper meaning.
Clark every morning. I'm stuck in a cycle.
Most of Rheindotter's research was based in alchemy, with a focus on the role of earth in the alchemical process. That's why the first stage, Nigredo, is called humus, the black earth, and the second is albedo, also known as the purified earth, or chalk. This, alongside albedo's geoaffinity and Rheindotter's burnt orange color scheme, suggests to me that she is most closely aligned with the element of earth. However, due to the primordial—
Oh gosh, it's Geo! Oh no! Oh, no one's gonna pull for her now.
sea being the source of all life in Teyvat, Naberius' blue color scheme, and her relationship with the Hydro Archons, Naberius is most likely affiliated with water. Albedo says that dust is the most basic form of complex life, and dust should relate directly to Earth. But if the primordial sea is the source of all life, then perhaps both things are true. Perhaps true life comes when you mix the dust of the Earth with the water from the primordial sea to make clay from which the living can be made. So you're meshing the physical form with the emotional, spiritual body of water. Now, I know a lot of myths that talk about gods molding humans from clay, and frankly, Neuvillotte's interest in ceramics makes this connection all the more compelling. He's also a very watery serpent like Jormungandr, which is pretty cool in my opinion. As another fun side note, my friend Saber pointed out the fact that Volume 3 of the Hexencircle's book, The Little Witch and the Undying Fire, was written by Rheindotter, and given the commentary about her mental instability at the time, it must have been written soon after she swallowed Naberius and was still struggling to maintain.
Oh my god, I thought that was like the Hoyo. Sorry, I thought that was the actual Hoyoverse trailer. That wasn't. That's insane.
Fire
That's
was
actually
written
insane.
by Rheindotter.
I thought
and
it was.
Given the commentary about her mental instability at the time, it must have been written soon after she swallowed Naberius and was still struggling to maintain absolute control over her body. This volume, and the one that comes after it, tells a story about a sentient mold that the Little Witch found. A mold that possessed the ability to allow life forms to obtain their ideal state. Deciding she wanted to become the mold, the Little Witch decided to eat it. And then the Little Witch's friends told her that the mold was actually a mimic of the Demon King, which meant that she was now a mimic of the Demon King. So I can't stop thinking about this witch who ate a sentient mold with control over biological life forms that is also somehow a mimic or shadow of a Demon King, because that really sounds like Rheindotter in the Shade of Life to me. Especially the part where the mold can help biological life forms achieve their ideal state, because that's basically just evolutionary genetics, isn't it? Also, it occurs to me that the book Hex and Hound may also be about Rheindotter, as it describes a witch with two minds in a single body. One witch performs light magic and the other dark magic. Again, this is probably not a one-to-one, but I still think it's really fun. Also, there's a dog in it. It feels very Cerberus to me. One last thing before we move along. Since she's a member of the Hexencircle, Rheindotter should be decently close with Nicole, and she may, in fact, have crafted Nicole's current body. Now, based on the story Wolfie tells us, Nicole should have lost her original body in the whole plight of the Seelies thing, but in the Moonlit Ballad trailer, we see her physical form make a return. And this one has a few things in common with Albedo's body. The easiest similarities to spot are the overall colorings between them and the matching 4 pointed star pontile marks. But less obvious are their eyes. Yes, Nicole and Albedo have different pupils, but they both have a similar ring with 3 conspicuously placed circular patterns on them, both of which resemble the tops of an alchemy table. And Rheindotter was, and still is, a famed alchemist. Prior to fusing with Naberius, she created all of her life forms using alchemy, including Albedo. So there's no reason to doubt that if she did make a new body for Nicole, she would have done it through the process of alchemy, and that body would have boasted some of the same sort of traits. So yeah, I think it's actually quite likely that Rheindotter made her fellow witch a new body. Unless Nicole never actually lost her body and it was all just a very complex metaphor, that's a distinct possibility too. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think that's all I have to say about Naberius and
Wait and see until we probably meet Nicole, if we ever do, which I feel like we will, bro. I feel like we will definitely not cry. Definitely.
Right now, so let's move right along and talk about Istroth and Vedderfolnir. Istroth is named after the demon Astroth, who is said to keep the secrets of the past.
Vedderfolnir, isn't that that crystal that we saw? Was it? I don't remember. I think maybe. I don't know. Ashika would mention it to
present and future. A very fitting name for the god that governs over time. But just like the other shades, I do think that Istroth's role is a little bit more nuanced than just governing over the concept of time. I think instead of saying she has absolute control over the flow of time, it would be more accurate to say that she governs over moments of time. I'm making this distinction not just because the Before Sun and Moon book calls her the god of moments specifically, but because her authority over time appears to manifest in a somewhat localized manner. So I guess what I'm saying is that she doesn't really govern over a collective timeline as it flows in a singular direction into the future, but instead, she's actually more like a keeper of the individual moments or snapshots or memories that belong to everything alive or dead. think of her as like a historian or a record keeper of the world rather than a being that walks through time itself. This is very much in line with how Astaroth can tell you anything about the past, present, or future. He also has access to the records, but he doesn't actually walk through time. One piece of supporting evidence can be found in her epithets. She's most frequently referred to as the Thousand Winds in Teyvat, and in Mondstadt, where she used to be worshipped alongside the god of wind, who is Venti, there's a legend that says she's the one who steals away the stories of people, the seeds of stories carried on the wind and cultivated by time. And she did this quite literally once, allowing Makoto's memory seed to transcend time back in A's second story quest. There's another interesting reference to her in Lost Prayers to the Sacred Wind that claims that souls become one with the Thousand Winds after death, and that kinda checks out, you know? Throughout most of Hoyo's games, souls are a concept interchangeable with that of stories. In other words, your soul is made up of your history, your memories. And this links her not to death, but to the afterlife. And it totally makes sense for her to be worshipped alongside Venti in this context too, because while Venti takes inspiration from many places and many characters throughout mythologies, one of the most notable ones is Orpheus, who is infamous for his journey into the underworld. Also, Venti kind of, ferried a soul in his first story quest. So that's a thing.
Wait, that is crazy. Still, how many connections to Venti's Venti's only story quest? There is definitely the world quest, was it? There was a whole book about Stan Lee and how Stanley met, I'm pretty sure Stanley actually met up with, not Stanley, Stanley, met up with, Enjo I'm pretty sure that was describing, him meeting up with Enjo in the marriage of Ari. Obviously, I think Stanley died there, right? So that was very interesting. That whole book was very interesting.
And speaking of Venti, he's very relevant here because in his third character story, we learned that prior to his ascension to Archonhood, he was but a single thread of the Thousand Winds. And in his character demo, it says he was born from the branches of time. Both of these things suggest a close association with Istaroth, as she was both the god of time and the Thousand Winds. Also, they were worshipped together. The way I see it, this relationship can take one of three
forms. And
obviously,
we learned more. Obviously, this was before. That's what I said at the beginning, but obviously, we'll learn more in the most recent 5.8 patch, with how Istaroth gave Venti some authority over time itself and some of her authority and stuff.
Either Venti is a fragment of Istaroth, a creation of Istaroth, or he's one of Istaroth's legions. Because remember, these high-level demons in the demonology grimoires that we've been talking about, like the Lesser Key of Solomon, all of them have legions of lesser demons under their command. So it is possible that Barbados answers to Astaroth. You know what I mean? But no matter what the case, it is very important to remember that these are two very separate beings. That's why they have different demon names. Now, because Venti has a close relationship with Istaroth, we can look at him to learn a little bit more about her powers, because there should be at least a little overlap here. So okay, Venti is a bard, and a bard is someone who sings ballads, and ballads are stories told through songs. Stories are a means of recording history or proclaiming prophecy. It's a very specific interpretation of time through music, and it's very individualized. Every ballad tells the story of a single hero. And this is sort of what I mean about Istaroth's power being somewhat localized and not all-encompassing. She may have access to every song in the library, but she only really plays one song at a time. For an example of what I mean, take a look at what she's doing when she's sitting in this tree in the trailer. It looks as though she's rewinding time, but she's only rewinding time for this tree and not for anything else. So what she might actually be doing here is tapping into the tree's memory and replaying its history. If that is the case, it would shed some light on why Renova said Istaroth bestowed history.
Well, why did I not notice that until right now? How did I not notice that until right now? That's insane.
If that is the case, it would shed some light on why Renova said Istaroth bestowed history upon that old lady and her students in Asmodee's cube space. Istaroth was merely sharing records of time. She was sharing with them
don't destroy
a
the
story.
Tree.
Or rather, four stories. Also worth noting, in the
That's
Aranaga questline, Aranaga calls the wind that flows forever.
Oh yeah, by the way, the Thousand Winds, interesting. I still haven't completed the Aranaga quest. I said I would complete it like a year and a half ago, and obviously I was streaming doing it a little bit, but then I kind of just stopped. And I still haven't done that quest in that the leeway place either. So yeah, I haven't done a lot of those. I just can't be bothered, bro. I can't be bothered.
The thousand winds that
Can't be
return to
bothered.
one by another name, ad oblivion, which means to be unaware or to forget. The context here is that humans are forgetful things and therefore require living memories or remembrances so they do not forget. So they're kind of citing Istaroth as someone who can make others forget things. If she's the keeper of the world's records in the form of time, then she could effectively conceal or destroy those records at will. Kind of like when Irminsul rewrites the memories of the world. As an aside, I can't help but wonder if Hoyoverse gave her this title as a nod to Lovecraft's story Ex Oblivion. They do love their Lovecraftian references, especially when it comes to godly entities. And this one just so happens to be the story of a man who wishes to be free from the pain that's found in the real world, but soon discovers that death is nothing but an infinite void on the other side of life. Yes, he gets his sweet relief, but also there's nothing there. It's terrifying. The two could be completely unrelated though. I just thought it was interesting. Now the reason I'm pairing Istaroth with Vedrfolnir is because Vedrfolnir is known for his infallible prophecies. But
that is okay.
in the Karibear quest, where we first encountered him, he not only said he'd be waiting for the Abyss Twin at the end of time itself, but he also recovered Karibear's soul, his story. And that's a very Istaroth-esque power, don't you think? To recover memories that should not exist? That's the name of the subquest too, by the way. Now, Vedrfolnir gets his name not from a demon, but from a bird that sits atop the world tree in Norse mythology. The name means wind-bleached or pale storm. And
I mean, what was it? Shade being, technically being Sitters isn't really foreign because, Ryan Daughter and it went over. So, I mean, who knows?
it also ties him to the element of wind, again, much like Istaroth. The mythical Vedrfolnir is sometimes thought to be seated atop the eagle Hresvelgr, whose name means corpse swallower, and this lines up with Istaroth's associations with the
Damn.
afterlife. Actually, I wonder if Irminsul is Hresvelgr, like even allegorically, because all souls and all memories return to Irminsul when they die. Let's think about that another time. Now, you regular viewers are just waiting for me to bring up Deshret. Unfortunately for you, I am not going to make this about Deshret, although I can and I have in a different video. But that said, I do want to mention something
you just did
Nabu
mention.
Malikata said to him in the Flowers of Paradise Lost set, because it feels quite relevant here. When he told her of his desire to free humanity from the shackles of the gods, she said to him, "You seek but to chain the winds. Upon the tombstone of divinity shall humanity become the god of gods." This is a variation of a line from Ecclesiastes that talks about how everything is as pointless as chasing after the wind. Similarly, chaining the wind feels like an equally pointless endeavor because the wind doesn't really have a physical form, so what would you even chain? And while I'm not entirely sure if the use of chain instead of chase is intentional in the original text or translation, I want to lean into it because Vedrfolnir appears to have some deeper connections to the founding of the Abyss Order, and the Abyss Order chained a statue of a wind god back in the We Will Be Reunited quest, as well as Boreas. And Boreas is the name of the god of the North Wind. So two wind gods got chained in the same...
Oh, but yeah, when the fuck did this happen? When the fuck did this happen, bro? Was this Ray's story quest? It seems like since Race is a part of it, this seems like Ray's story quest. Wow, I do not remember this at all. That's insane.
Boreas is the name of the god of the
Remember
North
this
Wind.
ever happening.
So two wind gods got chained in the same quest. To make things even more interesting,
Hold up.
and the Abyss Order chained a statue of a wind god back in the We Will Be Reunited quest, as well as Boreas. And Boreas is the name of the god of the North Wind. So two wind gods got chained in the same quest. To make things even
Same
more
quest.
interesting, Vedrfolnir's
Oh yeah, it has chains. Wait, what's those chains?
list is named after the Nordic Gleipnir, an iron rope or chain that was used by the gods to bind Fenrir. And Fenrir was a wolf that was fated to
Give it a
devour
go.
Odin during Ragnarok. So perhaps, like Deshret, Vedrfolnir wished to chain the winds, to conquer time itself. Although this makes me wonder if the reason why Fenrir is being referenced here is because Odin raised Fenrir, so to be killed by him was almost like an act of betrayal. Perhaps Istaroth is also fated to doom someone she was raised or created by. Alternatively, it could be a reference to that crystal he spoke to us through. Whether that's Vedrfolnir's body or not is kind of irrelevant here. What matters is that the crystal is bound by chains. Continuing along that train of thought, one thing I do want to say about Istaroth before we move on is that she feels to me to be a bit listless. anxious, or maybe a bit sad or guilty, or at the very least uncomfortable. She gives the impression in the trailer that she doesn't really want to be here doing the things that she's doing, but alas, she cannot refuse. That's why I suggested she might have a streak of betrayal in her. I find it especially compelling because of the history that she bestowed upon that old woman, because it feels like we're getting some insight into how Istroth is viewing things. That story she gave the old woman was the story of the four shades, and each shade was written as not abiding by reason. Now, this of course can be interpreted one of two ways. The first is that the rules set by the shades are absolute and cannot be reasoned with. This is the most logical interpretation in my opinion. However, given Istroth's attitude and the other context here, and also the other shades' general lack of enthusiasm and sometimes fear over their current master, I do wonder if the second interpretation is a bit more accurate. If none of the shades wish to obey the power of reason possessed by the heavenly principles, ergo they do not abide by it. Food for thought, I think. Also, just a fun little observation. Istroth is literally a humanoid wind chime made from clock hands. Wind chimes are actually a symbol of protection, which I think plays into her record-keeping role, and it also ties into Venti's music theme, as wind chimes play the music of the wind. And at last, we arrive at our final pairing. Asmodee and Certology. I know, this
Oh,
pairing...
it's Certology? Skirk's Master? Let's hear it.
It's a bit odd, partially
Yeah.
because I don't have a ton to base this off of beyond, the
I'm
process
interested.
of elimination. So
I'm
here's
listening.
what I've got to start with. Certology seems to have mastered some
listening.
control over the power of space. He's at least figured out how to open the gateway into and out of Teyvat, and that appears to be the same gateway that Asmodee was preventing the twins from reaching at the start of the game. I think that alone suggests he has a possible connection with Asmodee, but beyond that, I really
Certology is the new master that Asmodee loves more than even her own self. Hey, I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying.
don't have much to connect these two
I'm
with
just
for
saying.
now. But what I will say is that despite the fact that both of them are currently missing, I doubt Certology is Asmodee's new master. He seems to care very little for
I was saying that as a joke, but if you couldn't tell.
anything beyond personal strength and combat. Relying
It would
on the
be
power of
crazy.
the Shade while he's out wandering the galaxies just feels a bit out of character for him. Unrelated to Asmodee or the power of space, Certology's weapon is a bow named Goosesnouter, which is a reference to a prophecy in the Hervarar saga. This prophecy claimed that Oder would be killed by his own horse, so to prevent that from happening, Oder killed his horse first. He can't kill you
Oh.
if it's dead, right? The
True.
Goosesnouter in this case were the magic arrows that Oder received from his father, and he used them to win countless battles and achieve wide renown. Very much in the same vein as Certology. But despite his incredible combat achievements, he tripped over his horse's skull on the way home, and he, died. Prophecy fulfilled. And this is funny.
Hey, you can't defy fate. If fate has you dying from your own horse, you will die from your own horse, one way or another. That's insane.
To me because
That's
a
funny.
horse is basically a
That's actually
mount,
funny.
and dragons are also considered mounts, especially in
That's
Chinese
actually
mythology,
fun.
and Skirk is quite draconic in many ways.
It's just
And
like a
the
little
girl has a
wing, yeah.
Melazine wing on her back. And Certology was issued a prophecy by veteran
I would have called. I mean, I don't. Yeah. I didn't think of a Melazine wing.
Fulnir that claimed one day Certology would have a disciple that he would bring to Teyvat. And sure enough, Certology found Skirk and he brought her to Teyvat, and he wants her to try and best him in a fight to the death. So in a way, Skirk is kind of the horse of Oder's prophecy, you know? The one that's gonna probably kill him in the end. So that's fun. Also fun is the fact that Certology's featured weapon is a bow at all, since that's the weapon that Child uses because he struggles with it the most and he wants to master it. And it matters because Child is a disciple of Skirk and Skirk is a disciple of Certology. I just think that's fun. But that's really all I have to say about Certology, so now it's time to talk about Asmodee, the most mysterious of the shades because she
Asmongold.
wasn't
Alright, let's
even
listen.
in the
I can't
trailer.
believe they put Asmongold into the game. He has to play the game now. He has to, like.
So Asmodee is the most mysterious of the shades because she wasn't even in the trailer. So Asmodee is named after the demon Asmodeus, who has quite the resume. While often touted in occult circles as the demon of lust, Asmodeus is more accurately described as a demon of wrath. The lust associations come from a few instances where he's had to enact revenge upon some people.
I just realized
The
that
lust
building
associations come from a few instances
underneath. Look at that. Look at that. Damn. That pillar. Actually.
where he's had to enact revenge upon some peoples by sabotaging their marriages, and that means making their married partners lust for other people. So that's where the lust comes from. But the root of it is really wrath. It was all about revenge and punishment. But rather than stick with either of those definitions for Genshin's sake, Asmodee seems to me to be a bit more like a demon of separation. In the same way that Asmodeus separated husband and wife, Asmodee separates space from other spaces. And she can also separate twins like she did at the beginning of the game. Asmodee's power manifests in the form of cubes that form the boundaries of space itself. And I think the reason why Asmodee's powers are cubic has to do with Asmodeus's other name, Soccer, which means the one bound in rock. Because once upon a time, Asmodeus was bound within a box made of stone, locked in it with iron chains, and then thrown into the sea. So these red cubes represent the stone boxes, and these...
There would the water get in? I mean, she would die eventually from suffocation. From, like, carbon dioxide poisoning. But still, I feel like the water would go in. But I guess it would probably collapse over time, too.
eyes on them are actually representational of the chains. Now, as far as getting tossed into the sea goes, well, it's tangent time. So Asmodee has been missing for quite some time already, perhaps for a full 500 years, and no one seems quite sure of where she went. But they do seem pretty sure that she has a new master somehow, presumably one that's on par with whoever the current Heavenly Principles is. I've seen a lot of speculation as to who this new master is, and frankly, I think most of the candidates have merit. But my two personal favorites are Alice and the Traveler. Note that I said
Alice? Interesting.
favorites and not the ones that I think are most possible. Those are sometimes the same thing and sometimes not. But the rationale for Alice being the new master is that she calls herself the sustainer of the world's borders. And that certainly sounds like Asmodee as the one who defines the four corners of the world and deems themselves the sustainer of heavenly principles. How is Asmodee not also the sustainer of the world's borders? Alice is also a bit of a free spirit, and she's capable of leading to that and traveling to far-off places just like Sertology. On top of all this, she's been constantly nudging the Traveler along their journey, secretly hinting at all the events that are yet to come through the custom Hexen Circle-dominated summer events, and somehow she always seems to know what's going on. So perhaps the appearance of Asmodee's portal in the Space and Time for You quest was actually Alice spying on current events using Asmodee's powers. Honestly, it would be on theme for the Alice in Wonderland themed character to have space-related powers. I mean, the original Alice did walk into an alternate world through a looking glass and also a rabbit hole, so there's that. It also means she could have simply instructed Asmodee to appear and stop the twins because Alice wanted the twins to do something.
100 years ago.
So that whole exchange at the beginning of the game could have been...
I'm going on a tangent. How long ago that was?
Simply instructed Asmodee to appear and stop the twins because Alice wanted the twins to do something. So that whole exchange at the beginning of the game could have been orchestrated by a witch. But as fun as this idea is, my biggest issue with it is that I feel like because Alice and Rhindaughter are friends, Rhindaughter would probably know about Alice, contracting a shade, especially since Rhindaughter now is one. But regardless of who Asmodee's new master is, I do think that Paimon...
Oh yeah, forget she's also part of the Hexen Circle. Holy fuck, Rhindaughter. Rhindaughter's like, yeah, Rhindaughter to the Hexen Circle, a shade, and a sin. Oh. God, what else is she, bro? What else is she? Jesus Christ. I wouldn't be surprised if she's the fucking Heavenly Principles itself. I mean, that can't be possible, can it? It's a guy. I mean, who knows at this point?
Is related to Asmodee. I don't think she is Asmodee, like, straight up, but I do think that her relationship with Asmodee is very similar to Venti's relationship with Istroth, and that's why they also have different demon names. Because again, if they were the same demon, they would not have different names. But whether Paimon is a fragment of Asmodee, or one of the demon's legions, or like a mini Durin version of her that will eventually be merged into the main body a la emergency food style, it doesn't actually matter that much for right now.
Or she'll get a new body. Like Doran. I don't
What matters is that they're connected at all. Yes, this is still my tangent, and here's my thought
Aw.
process. As I mentioned, Asmodeus was bound inside a cube of stone, wrapped in iron chains, and then shoved into the sea, right? Well, Paimon was fished up from the sea. She sank like a rock because she can't swim. Asmodeus hates water. That's
Why
why
does
they
it make me laugh at how she described her? She sank it like a rock. I don't know why that makes. I don't know why that's so fucking funny to me. I think it's how Ashikai said it. Oh no.
and then shoved into the
This
sea,
is how she
right?
said it.
Well, Paimon was fished up from the sea. She sank like a rock because she can't swim. Asmodeus hates water. That's why they threw him in the sea. There's another related tale where Asmodeus steals the ring that Solomon uses to control demons and then casts Solomon out of the palace or temple, similar to how Asmodee cast the twins out of this area. Now, eventually, that ring ends up in the water, swallowed by a fish that then somehow ends up on Solomon's table, and when he cuts it open, he regains his ring, and thus he regains his control over the demons. And then he
Wow,
casts
that's actually
Asmodeus
crazy.
out of his palace. Similarly,
That's actually
Asmodee stole
funny.
the Traveler's Sword, which may or may not be a manifestation of their power over reason, according to the Narcissenkreutz's quest. And
I
it
forget
is
she
quite
stole
likely
his-
that reason is the same power that the Heavenly Principles uses to command all of the demon gods, so there's some overlap there. But also, the Traveler fished up Paimon from underwater, and all of the Traveler's powers are unlocked and upgraded with Paimon's assistance. It's like she possesses the key to the Traveler's powers and is somehow slowly returning it, or at least helping them rediscover it. It's
Interesting.
a bit suspicious. And it
That's
gets
actually
more
interesting.
suspicious. Because under the name of Sakura,
Well.
Asmodeus also taught a Jewish prince about the 7 layers of hell, which is similar to how Paimon acts as the traveler's tour guide across the 7 nations of Tevant.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
And
7.
both twins get referred to as prince or princess either by Conria or by themselves during a conversation with Lilupar. And in the Melazine village, Kenatilla describes Paimon as a rainbow balloon floating
did
in
do
the
that
air
quest.
with her string extending upwards beyond the sky itself.
If you want to see me do that quest, I think I did a live stream at one point. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was on Twitch, so it'd be on my VOD channel, or on YouTube. So I don't know. You can find it if you want to see it.
Conversation with Lilupar. And in the Melazine village, Kenatilla describes Paimon as a rainbow balloon floating in the air with her string extending upwards beyond the sky itself, suggesting that Paimon has a connection to the realm beyond the sky, which should be the realm beyond
The thing is, it's crazy how much, like, even the most simplest or random shit, you have to, like, think about so much, because nothing Genshin does is a coincidence. They do it on purpose. So it's like, even the most random shit like that, you wouldn't even think of. Like, a random Melazine saying that. It's like, you have to think about it so fucking hard. It's like, I've write an essay about every single word in the freaking... Like, every single thing. Like, oh my god, I don't even know what to say
suggesting
anymore.
that Paimon
Insane.
has a connection to the realm beyond the sky, which should
Insane.
be the realm beyond the space-time of Tevant. And Paimon also likes to hint at there being more of her somewhere, and that she has more fearsome abilities besides just having a bottomless stomach. And while I'm sure much of this is just said in
Trivios.
jest, I'm still suspicious all the same. Whether or not Paimon is
Paimon is a
aware of
bit
the implications
sus.
of the things she's saying, the writers of this game are, and I don't trust them. Plus, Paimon's name is taken from the demon most loyal to Lucifer, and since our Paimon is the most loyal to the Traveler must be Lucifer in this scenario. And if you want to argue that the twins are the morning and evening stars, both of which are connected to Lucifer the Lightbringer, then you have an even stronger connection. And yes, this has happened at a few points in time in the game's history, so it's not out of the question. But there are 2 things that are interesting about this connection. First is that Lucifer is the rightful commander of the demonic legions, according to the Book of Offices. And if the Traveler is related to Lucifer, then that suggests that the Traveler is also the rightful commander of the demon gods. The second interesting thing about this has to do with
Oh,
what Renova
yeah,
said about
connection. Oh, yeah. I forgot this was a connection about Asmodee's new master. Yeah, no, it's at the chapter. Yeah.
Asmodee's alleged defection. She said that Asmodee would only defect if she loved her new master more than herself, and I'd wager that Paimon fits that description as the demon most loyal to Lucifer. I think the only thing that really trips me up about this idea is that all of the shades have triketras somewhere on their outfit.
Oh, yeah. Jesus Christ, I didn't know that as well.
Plaque.
Fucking hell. This is why I watch
Plaque
Ashikai
again?
videos.
Even
This is why I
after
watch
working
Ashikai
at
videos, though,
night?
because I
I'm
am
stuck
not
in
seeing
a
a lot of shit.
But Asmodee doesn't.
Oh.
She has a 4-pointed witch's knot on the back of her neck,
Oh,
which is
interesting. Which is not. And Paimon has the how is that? Triquetra?
also known as a Solomon's knot because apparently Solomon practiced witchcraft and is therefore considered a witch in some circles. I am not making that up, that is a real thing. But Paimon, on the other hand, has the same triquetra the rest of the shades do, same as Venti through his use
And also, I didn't realize this until I was watching Branch's reaction to the Summer Quest and then the World Quest. That I didn't realize that behind the notes that you get, like the triquetra is literally in it. Like it's really hard to see. I literally had to close my blinds and have it pretty much pitch dark in my room to even be able to fucking see it because it's so faint. It's behind every single note. So if it's something left by like the shades, or so, like in a way, or something left by like a memory left by like Istaroth or something, I don't know. Or Paimon, I don't know. Very interesting.
the Cecilias.
Very
And
interesting.
if these knots are, for whatever reasons, symbols of allegiance, then this arrangement is a little bit confusing, and it might be retconned in the future. We'll see. Quick tangent. I'm not about to make an argument about Hoyo trying to cross over their games with each other. The future, we'll see. Quick
Not again.
tangent. I'm not about to make an argument.
Wait, what these? I actually remember. I think. Oh my god, I remember. I do remember people mentioning about the Genshin's wings being in the game. I don't know why. I don't remember it at all, but I have a faint remembrance of people talking about that for some reason.
About Hoyo trying to cross over their games with each other, but I will recognize that they love to repeat themes over their games, and I was noticing.
I will be honest. Obviously, because Honkai Impact and Honkai Star are connected. I don't know if you guys even know the reason why I ever started playing Honkai Impact, and it's literally because of Ashikai. The only reason I started playing Honkai Impact is because I cared about Genshin a lot. I still do. And about the story and everything. And Ashikai said, since like Genshin has Irminsul and Honkai Impact has the imaginary tree, that they could somehow be connected. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm playing Honkai Impact. That's the reason, by the way. And that's the sole reason I'm playing Honkai Impact. Now I don't. Now, not really. I'm just playing because I enjoy the story and everything, and the story is interesting. And plus, this connection to like Honkai Star Rail. But that was why I started playing it. I don't know if you guys even knew that. That is why. I don't know if I ever mentioned it in any Honkai Impact video, or in the first one. I don't know, but yeah. That is why I started playing it. It's because of Ashigo.
That in the Moonlit Ballad of the Night trailer that the Moon Sisters
Because
are
I care about
colored
Genshin a lot.
violet, white, and
I
bright.
was trying to, that sounded like I was saying Genshin was like a human being. You know what I mean? I care about the lore and story and everything.
Noticing that
I
in
like
the
it.
Moonlit Ballad of the Night trailer that the Moon Sisters are colored violet, white, and bright blue. These are the exact colors of Mei, Kiana, and Bronya's final forms in Honkai Impact 3rd.
Huh,
Given
yeah.
how much Asmodee looks like Kiana's Hersher of the Void
Sorry, let me.
and bright, notice
Oh
blue.
yeah, okay.
These are the exact colors of Mei, Kiana, and Bronya's final forms in Honkai Impact 3rd. Given how much Asmodee looks like Kiana's Hersher of the Void form, while the other shades
Yeah,
bear no real
people
resemblance to
definitely-
the OG
Yeah, people have been having that saying that for like since the first second of the game came out.
HI3 cast, I do wonder if Asmodee has a closer shades bear no real resemblance to the OG HI3 cast. I do wonder if Asmodee has a closer relationship to the moons or Nibelung than the other shades do. In fact, the four-pointed knot on her back could be a clue towards that. While I can't prove
She's
this
so
is the
cool.
case yet,
It's so annoying. I remember. Sorry, I'm going to do a tangent. That literally in that quest, I didn't realize my mic wasn't 100% like into my computer or my headphones. So my mic, you couldn't hear my voice the whole time during that quest, which like there was like chapter 8, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, chapter 8. Like, and that was that was the first like proper animation of the game as well. And my voice wasn't fucking recorded. I mean, you could probably just lip read what I was like saying. You could just straight up lip read, because obviously my face cam was still there. But it's just it's just insane. The first animation, and it was about like the Hersh of the Void and everything. And that my voice wasn't recorded. I was like, fuck's sake. That's why I'm glad I record my face cam as well, because if that happens, at least you can still get my reaction, like my bodily reaction.
fact, the four-pointed knot on her back could be a clue towards
both.
that. While I can't prove this is the case yet, I can share my thought process. So the finale of the Deep Galleries artifact set confirms that Nibelung was born alongside the world of Teyvat, and the Moonlit Ballad trailer confirms that he raised the three moons into the sky from the earth itself, which would technically make him the father to the
And people make some like interesting things that what if like the only reason we see only Teyvat, like, and Teyvat's like the only continent, is that it's because Nibelung used the other continents to make the moons, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting thought that could be a thing.
Moons. Now, logically speaking, this should mean that Nibelung at one point possessed or had access to all of Teyvat's authorities, and he should have bestowed at least 3 of those upon the moons: life, death, and...
So what if you could see, like, on the moons, like, remnants of the other continents and what happened on them and stuff?
authorities, and he should have bestowed at least 3 of those upon the moons: life, death, and time. Now, I know this goes against what I suggested earlier with life and death being the same authority at one point, but you can always assume that life and death just used to have different behaviors or structures, and these are separate theories, so just work with me here. Now, the reason I've chosen these 3 and excluded space specifically is because of all of the cubes. Cubes represent the Earth itself, whether you think about it alchemically, in that the prima materia or building blocks of the world are shaped like cubes, or if you think about it mythologically, in that Chinese mythology claims that the heaven is a sphere and Earth is a cube. It doesn't really matter here. The point is that Earth is a cube, and if Nibelung was born alongside the world itself, then Nibelung is also cube, because he's the spirit of the world. Ergo, the diamond symbol should be here. The point is that Earth is a cube, and if Nibelung was born alongside the world itself, then Nibelung is also cube, because he's the spirit of the world. Ergo, the diamond symbol should also belong to him, because it's just a rotated cube. This is also likely why Zhongli, who governs over Earth currently, also holds a cube, and why he and his followers have the ability to make sub-
Oh my god, bro, Ashikai's connections are always fucking way too good.
currently also holds a cube, and why he and his followers have the ability to make subspaces.
It's like I noticed that it was a cube, but I didn't register like it meant anything really, so I just kind of you forget about it completely.
Holds a cube, and why he
and all the backdrops of cubes like rectangles.
Have the ability to make
a rectangle is just technically multiple cubes.
Subspaces. So basically what I'm saying is that Nibelung would have retained the authority of space for himself up until the Heavenly Principles seized it. So when the Heavenly Principles made their shades, they gave 3 of them the lunar authorities of life, death, and time, while the 4th was given Nibelung's authority over space. And this is why Asmodee doesn't have a triquetra symbol on her. She does not have a lunar authority. In theory, at least. Now, I think simply possessing this authority over others may make Asmodee more inclined to side with draconic factions, and I think Conria is lunar authority. In theory, at least. Now, I think simply possessing this authority over others may make Asmodee more inclined to side with draconic factions, and I think Conria is one of those factions. Because again, in the finale of the Deep Galleries artifact set, we learn that Nibelung was friends with a star-eyed spacefarer known only as Voyager, and Voyager married the first angel, and that launched a whole rebellion against the Heavenly Prince.
I didn't know what you were like. I was watching a video, I didn't know what to talk about, so I had to look that up to know who the Voyager was. Yeah.
And if we were to assume that there were offspring from that union, because frankly this whole thing is very Enochian, and in the Book of Enoch, the humans and angels copulated and made the Nephilim. And in The Little Witch and the Undying Fire, the Hexen Circle claim that at one point the dominant race of the world was the Nephilim, who were the children of gods and humans, and if Seelies are considered gods, then, well, there you go. But my guess is that this so-called Nephilim lineage is also the Conrian bloodline, since the Conrians should have the same star-shaped pupils as the Voyager did. Now granted, we don't know exactly what the Voyager's eyes looked like, but the fact that they say star-shaped and that's also how Conrian eyes are described, it just kind of makes sense to assume that, but there is room for doubt. In any case, Conrians would be more aligned with Dragonkind simply because Voyager was on the side of Nibelung from the very start, and that's who the Conrians are very likely to be descended from. And so, for that reason, another possible candidate for Asmodee's new master is King Ermin. Consider the possibility that Asmodee actually used her power to isolate and preserve fragments of Conria back during the Cataclysm in order to prevent or at least decrease the odds of Renova destroying them. And it's possible she did it on the king's orders. She also could have been responsible for opening the gateways between Conria and Teyvat, which would have allowed the Conrians to enter Teyvat, also preventing them from being completely destroyed by Renova. It feels like a fairly unlikely possibility, but it is still a possibility. And this is just my opinion for right now, given what limited information we currently have. My opinions are subject to change based on new intel, as everyone's opinion should be, and that intel is coming up fast. And so is the end of this video, because it is here, right now. Like, I'm done. I have nothing more to add to this for the time being. I'm sure that will change as I have more time to let this information marinate in my brain, but until that time comes, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to take excellent care of yourselves out there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Oh no! No end of video. Random ass small theories. No. No. But yeah, so that's this video. I'm very interested to see what 6.0 non-cry is gonna give us. Like information is gonna give us. Like it's all. I think literally. I think it's not been that long. I think this came out around when the video, like when the patch released. So I think it's almost been around 2 weeks already, and Glamy's got 4 weeks around until non-cry. Around 2 weeks until the live stream. 2 to 3 weeks until the live stream. So, yeah. So obviously not next Friday. Probably like the 29th or the 5th will be where the live stream happens. Because Friday will be the 15th will be ZZZ. 29th is the Nod Cry live stream. It's probably going to go for like 2 hours as well. Definitely since they'll probably be doing a lot of stuff with it as well. But yeah, 29th. Mark your calendars. Will be the Nod Cry live stream. Or Saturday. Or the 30th. Either one of these. But it's probably the 29th. At probably midday, like what they did with the 5.0 one. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoy. I've wanted to watch this one for, well, literally like 9 days. Very interesting. I'm very excited. And yeah, let me know what your theories are. Let me know what you think. And I guess I'll see everyone in the next one. Peace.